That evening, a dinner was held for the speakers. Amaka sat at a round table with other entrepreneurs. She greeted everyone politely, but mostly listened. She didn't care for noise. She wanted to learn. Then, a man in a white caftan walked past. He was tall, calm, and carried himself with quiet confidence. His beard was full and streaked with silver. His eyes were warm. "Who's that?" someone asked. "That's Chief Obinna," another answered. "The real estate king. He's an investor. He's very private." Amaka kept sipping her water. She wasn't here for titles. Then a hand gently tapped her shoulder. "Excuse me," the voice said. She turned. It was him, Chief Obinna. "Are you Amaka?" he asked, his voice smooth and deep. "Yes," she replied softly. "I read your article in Business Life. Your story is gold." Amaka blushed. "Thank you, sir." "Please," he said with a chuckle, "call me Obinna." He pulled a chair beside her. They talked about life, about hard beginnings, about the smell of Mama's soup, about missing breakfast just to save lunch money. "I used to sell oranges by the roadside," he said. "I used to sell hope on a plate," she replied. They laughed. "You're sharp," he said. "And you're kind," she said. At the end of the night, he offered her his card. "I'd love to support your journey," he said. "Wherever you're going, I want to see it with you." They exchanged numbers. Days passed. Messages turned into phone calls. Phone calls turned into visits. He came to her restaurant with flowers. He waited in line like every other customer. "Are you really here?" she asked one day, smiling. "Where else would I rather be?" he said. He didn't rush her. He asked about her past. He never judged. He listened when she spoke. He made her laugh when she didn't feel like smiling. He respected her space. He respected her strength. One quiet evening, they sat under the stars after a long day. They shared fried plantains and soft drinks. "I haven't felt this peace in a long time," she said. He took her hand gently. "You're special, Amaka." Her heart beat faster. She looked down and whispered, "I never thought I would feel this again." Obinna smiled, his eyes full of softness. "You deserve love. You deserve joy." And for the first time in a long while, Amaka felt love again. Love returned to Amaka like a quiet wind after a heavy storm. But this time, it didn't come rushing. It came gently, patiently, like the soft light of morning. Obinna didn't just love her. He respected her scars. He honored her story. He understood her silence and celebrated her voice. They moved slowly. They took their time. They had long talks about the past and open dreams about the future. They cooked small meals together in her kitchen. They laughed over burnt yam and spilled salt. They prayed before bed. They watched the stars and talked about everything and nothing. With each passing day, their love grew deeper and stronger, like roots spreading quietly beneath a steady tree. One quiet Sunday evening, after they had finished eating under the mango tree in Amaka's garden, Obinna reached into his pocket. He didn't kneel. He didn't speak much. He just looked at her with eyes full of peace. "Amaka," he said gently, "will you marry me?" She froze. Her hands flew to her chest. Tears filled her eyes before she could speak. Then her voice broke free. "Yes," she whispered. Then again, louder. "Yes!" She threw her arms around him, laughing through her tears. Obinna held her tightly, the ring still in his hand, the sky full of stars smiling down on them. Word of their engagement spread faster than wildfire. The whole neighborhood buzzed, market women cheered, young girls clapped, Mama Nkechi shouted, "God has done it!" Chiamaka danced around the restaurant kitchen, singing Amaka's name. Everyone had one thing to say: she deserves this. The wedding became more than just a union of love. It became a symbol, a testimony, a moment where every woman who had been broken could believe in healing again. Amaka chose soft colors, ivory and gold. Nothing loud, nothing fake, just grace. Her dress was stitched with delicate pearls. The fabric moved like water when she walked. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't see pain anymore. She saw strength. She saw a new beginning. The wedding day was like a dream. Bright sun, soft winds, a garden dressed in flowers and palm trees. A fountain whispered in the background. The smell of food floated through the air. Goat meat stew, fried rice, fruit drinks, small chops. Guests wore their finest. Some wore lace, some wore gold. But no one wore more light than Amaka. She walked down the aisle with her father by her side. Every step was a step away from heartbreak, a step toward joy. Obinna stood waiting. His eyes never left hers. His hands trembled, but his smile stayed firm. When she reached him, he leaned forward and whispered, "I'm the luckiest man alive." She whispered back, "You're the answer to my prayer." They exchanged vows that made even strangers cry. Obinna's voice cracked with emotion. "Amaka," he said, "I didn't just fall for your smile. I fell for your fight, your fire, your heart. I promise to lift you, protect you, and walk beside you always." Amaka held his hands tightly. "Obinna," she said, "you didn't fall in love with who I used to be. You loved who I am. You saw me, and I will never stop loving you back." The guests rose to their feet. Tears fell freely. Hands clapped. Money flew in the air. The sky turned golden. It was a wedding no one would ever forget. That night, in their new home, Amaka rested her head on Obinna's shoulder. The room was quiet. The future felt safe. "I feel like I can finally breathe," she said softly. Obinna kissed her forehead and whispered, "You're home now." But life, with all its beauty, still had one more page to turn. Exactly 1 week later, Amaka decided to visit Obinna at work. She wore a soft yellow dress and a smile on her face. Her wedding ring caught the morning sun as she stepped out of the car and walked up to the company gates. One of the guards stepped forward to greet her. "Good afternoon, Ma." She turned, ready to smile politely, but her face froze. It was David. The same David who once left her when she had nothing. He wore a worn security uniform. His eyes were hollow. His skin was dry. He bowed his head, not meeting her eyes. "Good afternoon, Ma," he repeated, barely audible. Amaka said nothing. She simply nodded and walked past him with dignity, her heels tapping softly on the pavement. Inside, her heart beat fast. But her face stayed calm. She rode the elevator up to the top floor. When Obinna saw her, he lit up like the morning sun. "My queen," he said, walking over to hug her. "You didn't tell me you were coming." She smiled faintly and hugged him back. But Obinna was sharp. He looked at her closely. "What's wrong?" he asked. "You look a little shaken." Amaka turned toward the window. "I saw someone," she said. He came closer. "Who?" She faced him slowly. "David," she said. "The one I told you about. The one who used me, left me." Obinna's face changed. He was quiet for a long moment. Then softly, "Do you want me to let him go?" Amaka's voice was calm. "No. Life has already punished him. Let him be." Obinna kissed her hand gently. "You always choose grace," he said. "That's why I love you." They talked for a little while. They smiled again. Then it was time for her to go. As she stepped outside, the sky was beginning to turn orange with the setting sun. She reached her car and opened the door. Then she heard her name. "Amaka." She turned. David was standing behind her. He looked nothing like the man who had once held her hand. His eyes were red. His hands shook. He walked slowly, as if the weight of everything he had lost was too heavy to carry. "I'm sorry," he said. Amaka said nothing. "I lost everything," he said. "The money, the people, the girl. everything. But you, he paused, voice cracking. You gave me everything, and I didn't see it. I don't want anything now, he said. Just your forgiveness. Amaka looked at him with eyes that no longer cried for him. She saw him clearly, small, empty, forgotten. Do you remember the girl who walked home hungry so you could eat? She asked. David nodded slowly. You left her without a goodbye. He fell to his knees. Tears rolled down his face. Please, he whispered. Forgive me. Amaka looked down at him, her voice firm but kind. You made your choice, she said. Now live with it. She got into her car, closed the door gently, and drove away, leaving David on his knees, alone, broken, and full of regret. David sat alone on the wooden bench behind the security post, hidden from the bright entrance lights of the company. His head hung low, buried deep in his palms. Tears streamed freely, soaking into the sleeves of his faded uniform. The quiet hum of traffic beyond the gates felt distant, like the life he once knew. The air around him stood still, heavy with disappointment. He had nothing, no power, no pride, no peace. And now, the one person who had once believed in him with all her heart had looked him in the eye and walked away. Not with anger, not with insults, but with quiet grace. Her silence screamed louder than any words ever could. David rocked slightly on the bench, his hands trembling as he wiped his face. The sun had long dipped behind the buildings, leaving streaks of fading light scattered across the concrete. He could still see her clearly. Amaka, her elegance, her calm, her strength. The way she had stood beside her car, her eyes filled with something deeper than pity, something final. And then she had driven off. No turning back, no hesitation. He gripped his knees tightly and whispered to himself, You lost the best thing that ever happened to you. Now she has everything, fame, wealth, married to a man that did not only love her, but respected her. This could have been me, David thought. The memory of their early days haunted him like an old song, the laughter they once shared over late-night noodles, her hands always reaching for his when things felt hard. The joy in her voice when he first got the job that would later change everything. And what had he done? He had turned his back on her for a life wrapped in glitter, but empty of truth. His rise was quick, almost too easy. The job came with good pay and big expectations. Soon he wore suits he never imagined he could afford. He was invited to parties he used to watch on TV. He drank champagne he couldn't even pronounce. And then came Sandra with her expensive perfume and sharper tongue. She had eyes that sparkled with confidence, but a heart full of pride. She chose David like an accessory, something shiny to wear in front of her rich friends. He let her mold him, change him. He forgot where he came from. He forgot Amaka. He told himself Amaka would slow him down, that she didn't fit the image he was trying to build. He avoided her messages. He ignored her calls. And when she came to his door one evening with a warm meal and a full heart, he turned off the lights and hid inside. From that moment, something inside him began to rot. Sandra's attention turned cold when he lost his job. The money stopped flowing, the suits stopped fitting, and she disappeared without a goodbye. David became a ghost of himself. He pawned his watch, sold his phone, begged for food. And when the only job he could find was as a security guard, he took it with trembling hands and an empty stomach. He didn't know until his first day that he would be guarding the gates of a company owned by Obina, the man married to the woman he had abandoned. It was too much, but he couldn't quit. He had nowhere else to go. That night, while David sat outside in shame, Amaka was at home in her kitchen, preparing dinner for Obina. She stirred a pot of ogbono soup, humming softly. The kitchen smelled of spices and joy. Obina entered, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Smells like home, he whispered. She smiled and leaned into him. I made your favorite. They sat together at the table, laughing between bites, talking about work, about dreams, about a vacation they had been planning. No tension, no shadows, no pain, only peace. After dinner, they took a walk in the garden, hand in hand. The stars blinked above them. The night breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. Obinna turned to her. I love this life with you. Amaka looked up at him. I do too. It's simple, but it's everything. They sat on the garden bench, talking late into the night, about the girls in her cooking academy, about the new branch opening next month. Not once did she mention David, not because she was hiding him, but because he no longer lived in her heart. Back at the gate, David sat motionless. The stars above him looked distant and cold. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny photograph, a picture of him and Amaka from years ago, standing in front of her first food stand. Her face was bright with hope. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder. He stared at it until his vision blurred. Then, with trembling fingers, he folded the picture and pressed it to his chest. She was the light, he whispered, and I walked away from it. The wind whispered through the trees. For the first time, David didn't cry. He just sat there, alone in the silence of his regret. A man who had learned too late that some choices come with no second chance. Amaka, miles away, stood at the window of her bedroom, watching the moonlight spill across her garden. Obinna stood behind her, holding her gently. I still can't believe I get to love you, he said. She smiled, resting her head against his chest. It's not a dream. It's home. And with a heart full of peace, she whispered a silent thank you to the universe for all the storms she had survived. She had cried. She had fought. But now, she was free. Moral lesson. This story teaches us that we should never forget the people who helped us when we had nothing. Amaka loved David and gave him everything she had, but when he became rich, he left her behind. He chose money and pride over love and kindness. But later, life taught him a hard lesson. He lost everything. On the other hand, Amaka stayed strong. She worked hard, believed in herself, and became successful. In the end, she found true love with someone who respected her. The lesson is, always be kind, stay humble, and never forget the people who were there for you. What you give out will come back to you one day. Thank you for watching this story on Afro Tales TV. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment, and share with friends and family. We have more beautiful stories coming your way, so subscribe and stay tuned. See you in the next one.